Good evening, class. How is everyone doing? This is Professor Vasquez from the University of the District of Columbia Community College. So this video is for my Contemporary Police System and Problems course. This is week 4 and this is part 1 of this week's series. And today we'll be talking about problem-oriented policing. So the previous weeks we've talked about traditional policing, we've talked about community policing, and today we're going to focus on problem-oriented policing. All right, so as an overview, we will have an introduction as just one slide, then we'll be going over 2 articles like we always do. First one is policing, and the second one is problem-oriented policing from the National Institute of Justice. All right, make sure you're looking over your objectives, okay? Ensure that you remember you have a discussion board due this week, you have a quiz due this week, and you have a paper due this week. Please do not delay in submitting your assignments. If you delay in submitting your assignments, all it does, it takes me a little bit longer to respond back to you with your grades and feedback and so on. I have the links up on the PowerPoint, so you can look at the literature. As always, ensure you're looking at the PowerPoint presentation, you're looking at the videos, make sure you're looking at the literature so you really grasp and understand what it is we're discussing, okay, with this problem-oriented policing. All right, so let's get started. What is problem-oriented policing? All right, P-O-P, right? So what that is, it's the style of policing, right? Just like the other 2 that we've already discussed, and it's proactive in nature, right? So it's not reactive, it's proactive. And what problem-oriented policing attempts to do, it tries to tackle root problems, root causes. It tries to identify an issue and dedicate all its resources to that problem, whatever that is, whether it's loitering, whether it's burglary, whether it's gang activity, right? So you identify an issue, right? You analyze it, you try to come up with some tactics, some responses, some procedures, something in order to tackle the issue, and then you try to identify if that was met with the corrective plan. All right, so again, it does take the community into account, but it's not on the same level as community policing, and it's not as reactive like it was with traditional policing, right? So this is a little bit different from the other 2. Okay, all right, so what are the strengths of problem-oriented policing? Well, 1, you can identify hotspots. 2, you can identify what contributes to an issue, right? Is it poverty? Is it lack of employment? Is it education, right? Is it that there's just so much hostility and there's so much aggression within a certain location? Why is it that crime rises at this time? Why does crime drop at this time, right? So all of those things are taken into consideration. And then, oh, by the way, okay, so does that mean that we have to increase our patrol presence at this time? Do we have to come up with a task force? Do we have to dedicate more resources, right? So those are the strengths of problem-oriented policing. All right, so we're going to get into our first article. So this theory, this style of policing was created by Herman Goldstein in 1979, all right? So police must tackle community problems, right? Because we work for the community, we are the community. So in order for us to better serve the community, we have to really get to know the community, know the ins and outs, right? As I always say, unless you're from here, the Northern Virginia, DC, Maryland area, you will not know that it's pitch black at 5 o'clock come November 1st. You have to know that, right? So then also as chief of police, then you know at 5 o'clock in November, you know, you probably going to want to heighten your sense of security level, right? Okay, so what else also comes from problem-oriented policing? So one method is known as the problem analysis triangle. And I think we've already discussed this. And you have to take into consideration the relationship in between these 3 elements. The offender, the potential victim, and the potential geographical area. Is it the same type of threat analysis that it is in DC, that it is in Arlington? Is it the same type of threat analysis that it is in Northwest, that it is in Southeast? Right, so all those things compiled together, then that lets us know where it is that we have to dedicate more resources, right? I always give this example. I don't need something magical to tell me that on a Friday night, Saturday night, between the hours of 10 to 2, DUIs will be more prone, be more prevalent, right? I know that, right? And again, we could look at the victim, we could look at the offender, a location, probably some streets where there's some bars and things like that, right? So that's a little bit of analysis for you. All right, so there were 8 things that Ghosting said that we should tailor our police mission around in order to tackle problem-oriented policing. Number 1, prevent, control serious crime for life and property. We've already done that. Aid victims and protect others. So that's a little bit, yes, we aid victims when we get on scene, right? But this is also being put at the core of the mission statement. Protect constitutional guarantees, all right, and allow the movement of people and vehicles. And we also do that by traffic control and so on. Assist those who cannot help themselves. So we're talking about intoxicated people, disabled people, mentally ill people. Resolve conflict, maybe some domestics, maybe among property owners, things like that. Identify potentials of becoming a problem, right? And maintain security. But what I want to get at the heart of this, of these 8 elements, right, is you have, in order to do all that, you must know the community. You must be part of the community, right? You must understand what drives that community, right? So, and if you're not actively involved, then no, problem-oriented policing is not going to occur. All right, so moving on to the second article, and this is from the National Institute of Justice. All right, so problem-oriented policing is an analytical method used to prevent, all right, and reduce crime, right? So we've already talked about a little bit, and I'll give you a strategy here on the next slide. So we must analyze problems of the community and have solutions, right? We've all heard the term hotspots. What is a hotspot, right? It's a piece of land, it's a territory, it's a geographical area where we know that crime has risen for whatever reason, right? Lack of opportunities, lack of employment, lack of education, as I've already said, right? So, you know, is crime going to be high there, right? Why is it, as far as for calls for service, why do we get more calls for service from this location but not the other location? Why is there low income housing here but high income housing there? So that's what we're talking about, all right? All right, so the method I was talking about is known as the SARA model, right? And it was by Eck and Spellman, all right? And it has 4 processes. First one is scanning, the second one is analysis, the third one is response, and then the fourth one is assessment. All right, so in the scanning element, and this is in order to place problem-oriented policing into use, all right? This is what you want to use first. Scanning, identify and prioritize problems, right? Again, we've been through that already. All right, and so this is going to solve what is the problem, right? All right, have the community involved, right? Look at your CompuStat, look at your data trends, look at crime mapping, geospatial analysis. Look at all that information to identify what is the problem, you know, because every location will differ, right? Burglary might be prevalent here, but sexual assault might be prevalent here, right? So depending on the location, analysis, analyze the problem, get to the root cause, right? Don't just look at what could potentially be contributing. No, get to the root cause of that problem so it can lead you into the next step, which is response, right? The more you're informed on the issue, the more you can talk about it, the more you can put it into practice. You can apply different methods, right? But that analysis piece, if you're missing something, you're not going to be able to respond appropriately. So the third, as I said before, the third step of this is response, right? So you have to have a plan, you have to have objectives, right? And this will answer is, what are the solutions that you are going to put in place, right? And the last step of the SARA model is assessment, and it is, did the response work, right? Did you meet the intent, right? How are you evaluating the process that was put in place, right? All right, so we're wrapping up here. Key ingredients to problem-oriented policing: selecting a narrow problem, whatever that problem is, and then finding out, right? Is it at 10 o'clock when there's nobody at the metro station that robbery is high. Okay, and who has done it? What type of individual, and what have the victims been, right? All right, and what was the appropriate response? And lastly, we have to have outside partners other than the police department in order for a problem-oriented policing to be successful. All right, guys, that's it for this video. I'll have another video coming up shortly. Thank you.